Hey YouTube, Warbles on a lot here with a movie for the SunFoil project playlist. Here you can see the first Mk-8 prototype on the roof of my son's Holden Rodeo. This is a 30-watt gallium arsenide panel, ventilated across the trailing edge, mounted with a minimalist installation which is aerodynamically efficient. It doesn't take much in the way of time, skill or tools to contrive. And I'm pleased to say that the Mk-8 is the first SunFoil that I've liked so much that without making any major changes, I have gone ahead and constructed a second Mk-8 SunFoil with a 30-watt gallium arsenide panel. And today's mission is for my son, the auto electrician, to answer the question which is often posed to me, i.e., if somebody was to purchase their own solar panel, go to the hardware shop and buy some aluminium angle bracket, use a hacksaw and a drill, and slightly modify the solar panel and fit it on the roof of their car, if they were to likewise acquire a solar battery charge controller and use some sheet aluminium Tin-Snips drill and a pop rivet gun to fit that up to their car, and having essentially done all the unskilled donkey work, what's it going to cost for a certified auto electrician to then wire up the panel to the controller and the charge controller to the battery with the fuse in that line? When young fella me lad comes back from his immediate errand, we hope to find out the answer to that question. Okay, segue warning, although we're still on the subject of SunFoils. People often ask me why I persist in staying with rigid framed solar panels and mounting them vertically above the roof of the car. Well, here's the answer. This vehicle here is equipped with a flexible solar panel. However, all turns out not to be well with this idea. The owner of this vehicle used the strongest, grippiest, most high-tech marine adhesive silastic possible, and then took this thing out in the sun and found that trapped pockets of air underneath the flexible solar panel were heating up to the point where they bulged the flexible solar panel beyond its tolerances, and it actually ceased to function. So at the moment, all that is a very expensive roof tile, which looks as if it's a solar panel. Curiously enough, the owner of this vehicle used to drive an almost identical Subaru 1600cc, which he fitted out with a 20-watt panel of the old-fashioned non-flexible variety, mounted between two roof racks. This vehicle lives 50 kilometres from town. It regularly does 500 kilometres per week. Most of its driving is at 100 kilometres per hour on the highway. And after a couple of years with a 20-watt panel, even under those conditions, this vehicle or its sibling, its virtual twin with an old rigid panel, it was saving 4.5% of its fuel burn. So that's kind of like your worst case scenario. If you do lots of driving, lots of cruising at highway speed, and you put a solar panel on, you can still expect to save 4.5% of your fuel burn. If you do a lot of sitting in the driveway for 2 or 3 days between going for a drive, you're probably going to save 10, 15, 20% of your fuel burn. If you've got electric windows, and you're in the habit of getting up in the morning and wiping the windscreen front and back on battery power and then putting the windows down so the car doesn't heat up, and then putting the windows back up every day while the car's parked in the driveway, you may find, as I did with the Subaru 1800cc touring wagon and the 30-watt panel, I saved 30% of my fuel burn. And the touring wagon with a 30-watt panel may not be as aerodynamically slick as this setup, but the air underneath the old-fashioned rigid panel separated by about an inch from the roof of the car, that air doesn't heat up and wreck the panel. And after today's little effort, we will have 3 vehicles, completely different vehicles, a 1.8 litre, a 2 litre, a 2.5 litre diesel, all with a 30 watt gallium arsenide panel on the roof, and we will be able to compare the results of the 3 vehicles. But I would have to say, I advise against using flexible panels stuck straight onto the roof of your car. I've only ever seen one person try it, and that one person did not have a good result. And with the passing of the time, he's drilling holes in the roof of my fire chariot. And being an auto electrician, he knows what he's doing. Yeah, I just would have drilled a smaller hole and stuck the wires in and padded it with silastic. I wouldn't have known if there was a proper fitting. And before young fella gets here to connect this battery, I think I should probably remove all my pet spider webs. It would probably be an act of politeness, I reckon. Anyway, there we go. Spidey's gone, more or less. And while young fella's down there sweating in the stinking hot sun, and it is hot here, 32 or 33 degrees I think, have a look at this. See that? That's a 150 watt solar panel. Ventilated at both ends, because on this thing it has an extraordinarily unaerodynamic trailing edge, and what matters is venting the hot air out from underneath the panel. Now, this panel is to be matched by another one, and both the 150 watt panels will be feeding the deep cycle storage batteries, which feed the 240 volt 2.5 kVA inverter for the air compressor and the power tools. And then the 2 front toolboxes are slated to get their own 40 watt panel each to feed the 2 12 volt batteries, which constitute the truck's 24 volt electrical system. So if this is a Mk-8 SunFoil with no holes in the leading edge and a ventilated trailing edge, then this would have to be a Mk-9, I suppose, with full length angle brackets all the way down both sides and ventilation front and rear. So the design is in fact evolving, even though I've kind of frozen my take on it at the Mk-8. Which is a work in progress. Well, the wires have arrived at the front end, cabin's been put back together, and handmade artisanal connections are being constructed to fit into the charge controller, which is actually showing lights. In goes the fuse. And now the regulator is charging the battery. And the Mk-8 SunFoil is plugged in, switched on, connected up, and doing its thing. There we go. Done. On a lot to YouTube. The SunFoil project continues. Ciao.